All right, well, I guess we'll get started here. So thank you everybody for coming. My name is Stephen Mobihill, and I'm with Cinder Systems Corp. And today I'm going to be presenting on expediting Drupal WxT migrations with the power of AI. All right, I think we've got our recording going. All right, so I'm with Cinder Systems Corp. We're an IT consulting company in the Ottawa area. We have our TVIPs and pro services, so we provide our services through those vehicles. And we're big into solution architecture. We specialize in Drupal WxT development and support. We do all things Azure Cloud, data migrations, Apache Solr, enterprise search, and we're big on open source contributions. So, the origins of Cinder. So on the left here, that's the original Cinder. That was my parents' dog back in 1985 when I was just born. Fast forward to today, we have Cinder number 2 on the right side, and that's our family dog right now. So that's where our name comes from. And Cinder v3, well, this is what we think he might look like with some AI involved. So. All right, so my presentation it deals with Drupal WxT. So I figured I'd give a little bit of an update on where we are. So recently we went through a Drupal 11 upgrade with WxT, and I don't know if Joseph's here, he had a big part in that as well. So part of that upgrade, a big part was the jQuery 4 compatibility, which is now part of Drupal 11. So there's a lot of work to go into upgrading dependencies like Webbow, GC Web, and Bootstrap, because they were all bound to jQuery 3. So there's a lot of work done to get that upgraded to jQuery 4. We've included the topic page template for Canada.ca. So that's now part of Drupal WxT, and I'll be showing you that as part of my demo. Part of Drupal 11 WxT, we completely removed jQuery 4, or CK Editor 4, sorry. I'll come back at the end for questions there, just try to stay on time. So yeah, completely removed CK Editor 4, and now we've bolstered our CK Editor 5 support, so we've added some additional plugins and upgraded some existing plugins, like panels and alerts, and we also have some other ones we've developed, like the tabbed interface and the and/or conjunctions, which departments like CRA are using. And so that brings us up to date with Drupal core, so that's great. It's always nice to be on the leading edge. And I want to say a big thank you to the guys at Agriculture. They were the Pathfinder deployment for this. They sponsored this upgrade, and now because of them, they've de-risked upgrades for other departments. So big thanks to Agriculture for that. All right, so going over what we're going to cover in this section. So we're going to look at, just briefly touch on some challenges with traditional migrations. We're going to look at an overview of the AI Harvester, which is a tool that we've developed for migrating into Drupal. We're going to talk about how AI transforms the migration process, and we're going to go over some real-life examples of that in the live demo. All right, so we'll go over some challenges of traditional migrations. So first one is that they can be time-consuming. Oftentimes, if a project has a migration component, it could be a significant portion of time. And the nice part is that gives us a lot of room to optimize things and save time. Often, these migrations require deep technical expertise, these senior developers, and they can be quite fragile as well. So if you're looking at manipulating data or harvesting data from certain sources, selectors like XPath and regex can be quite fragile as the structure of the site changes from page to page. Oftentimes these selectors can break and require a lot of tweaking to get right. And so our solution is the AI Harvester. So it's an R&D project at Cinder Systems. It is funded in part by Shred. And it's built for Drupal 10 and Drupal 11. It's a module There's actually two modules. One of them is the harvester module, and it can run independently. You don't need to have AI to run this. And then there's a sub-module called AI Harvester, and that gives us all the AI integration. So we can install that and use AI in our migration pipeline as well. It was built to support Drupal WxT and Canada.ca themes, and that will be part of our demo as well today. And it has integration with Azure OpenAI and Azure Translator. And again, that's optional. I know not everybody is at the point where they have their governance or they have their guidance in terms of how they can use AI, so it's important that we can put this in place and use it without reliance on AI. And of course, from our experience, it can expedite Drupal migrations. We've completed 2 migrations, official languages or OCAL, without AI, and we were able to get our migrations done very, very fast. And right now, it's available through our professional services, but we do look forward to making it open source at some point in the near future. All right, so the key features of the harvester, first and foremost, it's built on Batch API, so it's scalable. They can support batches of 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 pages, and so that's an important part. We also have a plugin system that we developed, and it allows developers to create custom plugins to manipulate data, and we'll go over that in more detail. Another powerful part is the plugin UI. So, can't understate how important this aspect is. I know with traditional migrations, when you're using the YAML files, you know, it can be difficult to wrap your head around everything that's happening, and we find the plugin, UI can really facilitate managing your plugins. It has AI-powered extractions. So we use Azure OpenAI to extract data, to transform data, and to prepare it for import into Drupal. We also have translations built into the pipeline using Azure Translator. The nice part about this is it supports both text and HTML, so I can feed Azure Translator the body of my content, and it can have HTML in it, and it gets translated. And it also has AI diagnostics, so we feed our error messages into AI, and it transforms them from difficult to read and error messages into actionable items, and it shows you exactly where the issues are. It makes it really easy to fix issues when you run into them. And so here's a high-level overview of what the harvester is. So on the left side, you have your current website, it could be any platform, and so you're going to harvest all that data. Whether it's scraping the data directly from the website, or oftentimes different web platforms will have data extract functions like views data export. We recently used for a Drupal 7 upgrade, and that feeds right into the harvester. So in the harvester, you define your harvest batches. So you can separate your different imports into batches, depending on what content type you're going to import into, or what entity type you're going to import into. And then your plugins actually are defined per batch. And so a CSV file defines the content that we're going to migrate. And there's 2 modes. So the first mode is HTTP scraper. So we can feed it URLs, and it'll actually go and scrape the data right off of a website. And the other mode is direct input from CSV file. So again, we can use data export or some other export mechanism to get the data into a spreadsheet, and then we can feed that into the harvester. We can also do a combination of both. So we can scrape data, and we can also pass data in at the same time. We use plugins then to manipulate the data and get it ready to import into Drupal. Optionally, we can use AI to extract data from the sites that we're harvesting it from, or even manipulating the data that comes directly out of another system and fed in directly through the CSV file. And then entities are created, updated, or translated, and AI diagnostics helps to identify issues. And then on the other side, on the right side, you've got your migrated pages prepared for Drupal 10 or 11. And then we have our plugin system. So before we get into the demo, I thought I'd go over our plugins. So our plugins are defined. We define all the metadata and the annotation of the plugin. So when you add a plugin, for instance, in this picture here, we have a title field, and this title field has a plugin, and the label for this plugin comes from the annotation. And we also have the option of putting a context, so context true. You get this context box per plugin, and you can feed in arguments to your plugin. So for instance, in this case, we're extracting files, and in a website, oftentimes the files will be relative, and we need to make them absolute to download those files. So we can pass things in like the base URL and things like that. All right, so now we're going to get into the demo, and I'm going to see if I can put this microphone down and still make it.
Hold it for you.
Okay, perfect. All right. So here we have the harvester. This is the main UI. It's the batch listing page. You can see here I have a bunch of batches already predefined. So each batch, you can have an entity type, a bundle that it imports into a language, and you can see when you have a translation batch that translates something, it gets indented here and organized. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to run through a harvest of a topic page. So I'm going to add a batch. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to type the name of the batch. So we're going to do topic 01 English. We're going to keep AI assist off, but I'll be going over that after. So the entity type, we're going to import it into content. And the bundle, we're going to do topic page. We're going to select the language, it's going to be English. The harvest mode, we're going to do HTTP scraping. It's not going to be a translation batch because it's going to be the original language. So we'll keep that off for now. We could select a text format like rich text. And this is where we upload the CSV file that drives the whole migration. So I'm going to upload this topic page 01. All right. So just going to go over what this topic page 01 looks like. So we have an ID column. So it uniquely identifies it. This could be a node ID or an entity ID coming out of another system. In this case, because we're doing HTTP scraping, we've defined the URL, where to get the data. And then in this first pass, we're gonna import the title, the body, and the field date modified. And so when we're doing scraping, we start off with CSS colon, and that says, okay, we're gonna do scraping from the source, and then we put a CSS selector after, and that's gonna help get right into the data that we're looking for. And then, so you can select in this case like an H1, that's pretty safe. You know, most pages should have one H1. Some of them will have two. But in things like the page details, you notice that we're just doing the dot page details. So if I go and look at an actual page and look at what page details is, so page details is this whole section right here, right? And so one of the things where we realize we gain efficiencies is that we want to be able to broadly select where our data is and not have to pinpoint exactly what data is that we want to extract. So we're broadly selecting the page detail element here, and then we're going to deal with that in the plugin section after. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this harvest batch. All right, and now I'm just going to harvest it. We're not going to add any plugins or anything. Hopefully we have a good internet connection here. Okay, so it's created 3 entities for us, and we're just going to go and look at this harvest batch in more detail. So here's all of our CSV, all the lines from our CSV. Here's the entities it created for us, and here's the source URL where we can go and look at the actual page that we just scraped. And so I'm going to open these pages. If I can actually click on them. There we go. All right. So we've got some pretty plain looking site here. We've got our title, we've got our body, and the date modified, but it didn't take because, well, we just selected a bunch of HTML. So I'm going to go back to our harvest batch, and I'm going to go and add some plugins. So the first thing, as I was running this migration to prepare for this session, that I noticed is that this section here is indented. And if I actually go and look at the markup, it's this column MD12 that we have sitting there that's adding that extra margin. So I'm going to go to my plugins, and I'm going to add a field type. So now I'm going to go to services and information, and I'm going to add a plugin. So here's a list of all of our plugins that we have right now. I have this generic find and replace plugin, so I'm going to add that. And so it defines a context, so I can add data here. And then an important part is that there's a big description and full working examples of how to use this plugin. So for instance, if I want to do find MD12, and I'm just going to replace it with nothing. And then I'm going to add another field. And here I'm going to add the date modified. And I'm going to use our AI prompt plugin. And so this allows me to just feed in a prompt to AI. AI is going to get the data, and it's going to perform the manipulation that I asked it for. So in this case, I'm just asking it to look for a date, and it's going to extract the date and return it in year, month, day format. Okay, so I'm going to go and save that. And then I'm just going to harvest on top of what we already have. Okay, so it's updated 3 entities, and now I'm just going to go back here and refresh the page. Nice. All right, so you can see that MD12 is removed, so now we've got a nice flush body field. And if we go and look at the bottom, the date modified was, well, it defaulted to today, now it's back last year. So that's our first round. And so now we're going to go and we're going to do a second pass, and we're going to add some new fields. So I'm just going to remove this CSV file, and I'm going to go and add CSV file number 2, and click save. Okay, so let's look at what CSV2 adds. So in this case, we're going to add a field featured image for the top of our topic page, and a field introduction which sits next to the image. So now I'm going to go back to my plugins. And so again, the idea is that we don't have to specifically select the image in the selector. Right now we're just targeting the very top of the page. We're targeting this whole section here. Okay. And so that's what our plugin gets fed. And so now I'm going to add a featured image. And so when you add fields to the CSV file, they automatically become available in the select list. So I'm going to do featured image. And then for the plugin, I have a media field file extraction plugin. okay? And so because all of the images are going to be relative, we're going to add the base URL. So it's going to say, go to canada.ca to download these images. And it actually, in this case, this is a background image added to a div. It's not really actually an image. So we have this div extraction is equal to true. So this will allow us to extract images from divs as well. And we're going to specify an image destination path so that all of our images then get added to site's default files /harvester/images. And then we're going to add another field for the introduction. And we're going to add the select nth element by CSS selector. So this allows me to select the nth element that I define. So I'm going to add this here. So in our case, we're going to select the first instance of a p tag. I'm going to click save. Okay. And now we're going to run another harvest.
So that's actually topic 2. But we just didn't change the label, right?
No, this is the same migration batch. So we're just adding, now we're adding additional fields to the existing migration. And so there's an option, you can roll back and then re-import, but we have an option where you could just, you don't have to roll back, you could just harvest again, and it's gonna just update CNC. It's just updating the existing entities in this case.
Okay.
So now we're gonna go back and just check one out. So click refresh. So there we go, we've got our image, it's in place. Oh, wait a minute. We've got some HTML. So we're gonna go back to our plugins here. And we're just gonna add one more plugin.
Clean that up.
And so the plugins, as you can see, they're drag and drop. So you can add plugins and they're going to execute in the order in which you have them. So now I'm just going to add a strip HTML tags. And I'm going to let that run after we select the paragraph tag. So we'll save that. See, this plugin, it didn't have a context because it's just a simple action. We don't need any input. And then I'll just harvest on top of that. So confirm. Okay, now we'll go back to this page and we'll refresh. All right, there we go. Cleaned it up and it's looking a lot more like the original page. So
Beauty.
It's coming along nice. All right, so now we're gonna do the final, we're gonna add the final fields. And so I'm gonna remove this. And I'm gonna add the third CSV. So this migration, originally I was gonna demo migrating a simple page. And then one night I said, well, let me try something a little bit more complex. So we did the topic page. And so part of this batch, we'll go and look at the CSV file. So we're adding 2 more fields. So we're adding the field most requested and the featured field featured. So in the source, the most requested are all these links in this section, and the featured are these elements at the bottom here. Okay. So now we're going to.
So you're going to put those into blocks, or that's just going to go into the body content?
So we have, we'll talk about that as I add the field. Sorry, it's really awkward using this at an angle. Okay, so we're going to do most requested. So it's a link field. It has unlimited cardinality. And for links, we have this link extractor plugin. And so what I've done is I've just targeted this whole section. So it's just going to return the HTML from that whole section. And now we're using our link extractor to extract the links, and we're not going to actually pass it anything. And now we're going to add the final field, which is the featured field. And featured, it's a paragraph. So it is an entity on its own. It has its own fields. In our case, we're going to import into a paragraph that has an image field or a media field. It has a title field, and it has a text field. And so we're going to use our AI paragraph extractor. Nice. Okay, so it has a context. So first, I need to select the bundle. So in our case, it's the featured. So that's the paragraph machine name. And so what it's going to do here is it's going to go and get all the field definitions, and it's going to build up exactly the data structure that I want AI to return me the data in. We're also going to do a base URL because it has to download images, and those are going to be most likely relative. So we're going to add a base URL. And then a unique key. So the unique key is going to, when we do the import, it's going to look at existing paragraph items, and if it matches with the unique key, then instead of creating a new paragraph, it's going to just reference an existing paragraph. So we're going to click Save. And now we're going to harvest. So obviously we're calling an external service here. We're calling Azure OpenAI. So the more that you use AI to do these things, obviously it's gonna impact the speed and the performance. So one of our next steps, and we'll talk about this after, is looking into some self-hosted AI where we can get some better performance.
Exactly. So if your client like CSEC or CSIS or something, you don't want any external service reading or harvesting anything of your data. Yeah. You can host your own AI with Ollama, and we'll have a Ollama plugin that you can just point it to another service. So it doesn't have to be Azure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it could be your own self-hosted. All right, so we can see it's harvested all of our links. And if we go to the bottom, it's also harvested our paragraph items and brought in the images, the title, and the text with it. And it was interesting because I ended up choosing a couple topics to do as part of this demo. And this topic in particular, it was a completely different structure. So it actually had the title was above the image. And then it had the image, and the markup was completely different. But you could see, just a week ago or so, they updated it, and they've actually brought it in line with the other ones. But the interesting part is that really didn't matter. So when we ran it, the AI was able to understand the data contextually, and it was able to rip apart the different parts and prepare it for import into our system. And so now we've got, and so when I was preparing to do this demo, I was going to do a simple page, and then I decided to try this. So I did this migration in one night, and I also, at the end, figured that I was going to build this AI plugin to support the paragraphs. And so it just shows, once you have a good setup, a good framework to add these plugins, you can develop these plugins really quickly to do some advanced features and really drive some efficiencies with your migrations. So another thing I just wanted to quickly show was our AI error handling. So I've prepared this batch, I'm just going to harvest it now. And so we're doing this for error messages for either scraping the data or for importing the data into Drupal. But we imagine that this type of error handling could be added to other aspects as well. So we'll just let this batch run. All right, so we have some errors. So AI diagnostics for ID 1. So again, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to put everything in context of the ID. So in it, I could go right away. I know exactly what item had an issue importing. And it failed in this case because the title field, the data was null. So there was no data. In case 2, field direct CSV data, it failed because the data was too long for that field. In this case, ID 3, it failed because this URL returned a 404 not found. And so we also have these errors written to the logs as well, but this really speeds up identifying where the issues are and how to go and fix them. And it gives it to you kind of layman's terms instead of having to look at SQL type errors in the background. And so I'll just briefly go over a couple of the other plugins I have. And because one important thing is we don't want to have an over-reliance on AI. So we could easily just give the data structure of our piece of content to AI and have it extract everything for our node and just do it all at once. But we want to make sure that we remain in control. So another interesting thing here is, so I have this develop plugin. This one is a DPM. So I'm going to move it up here and I'm going to add another plugin. And I'm going to add a DPM as well. And this could just as easily be a logger to write to the Drupal logs. Okay, I'm going to save that. So what this is going to do is it's going to show me the data as it's being, before it hits my plugin, and then the data after my plugin works. So you can add these in to really see, especially
the transformation,
to see the transformation, especially with AI, to understand exactly what AI is doing. You can write these to a log, and then you'd be able to, have human verification within the process. I don't have to type anymore.
Cool. That's awesome.
So we'll just let this one run. All right, so here's the data that I've selected. This is the data that it's scraped from the site. And this is the link extractor plugin. And then here's the result after the plugin. So you can see, it has an array, it defines all my links and the link text, any other attributes. So we have full control to be able to see and log the data as it's going through the migration to really understand what's happening. This also helps as well when you're running into issues with plugins, when you're developing them or whatever, that you can easier to troubleshoot and see what's happening. So that's it for the demo. I already went through this paragraph extractor plugin while we were running it, so I'll just skip that. And so, what's next? So Joseph and myself, we're currently looking into self-hosted AI models to help improve performance and give us a broader selection of models to use, maybe some models that are more specific to HTML and markup. Right now, our demo, this was on ChatGPT 35 Turbo, so there's a lot of room for improvement there as well. We're going to be looking at fine-tuning models to have a better context of what we're doing, and again to have models more specific for markup. We're going to be looking to build more plugins to support a wider range of requirements, and as we find plugins that are generic and we could add the context to them to make them configurable, we're going to add that to the list. And then we're also looking to add 2 or 3 departments or organizations for our initial rollout to work through and refine the harvester. And like I said, we've already run 2 migrations at official languages, so We're looking forward to getting some more feedback and improving it some more. And so takeaways from this is that AI can be used to enhance a migration, to speed it up. It can help simplify the logic, as we saw with the paragraph extractor, and it helps us drive efficiencies. But at the same time, AI isn't perfect. We like to use it sparingly where we gain efficiencies, but we don't want to rely on it for our whole migration. So to be able to use it to speed things up, but still remain in control, where the human remains in control, that's one of our main focuses there. And I'd like to give some credit. So first off, I'd like to thank Serenia for her help on the Harvester project. She helped build a plugin system and worked with some AI integrations. And then Joseph Olstad, who we have here, he's working with me on some research into self-hosted AI models, his help on the Drupal 11 WxT upgrade, and the work that we've been doing at OCall. And that's it, so I'll open it up for any questions that anybody may have.
Fernando, question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll come right back.
In your example, I'm just curious, are you, have you set up the site structure beforehand, or?
Yeah, so we migrated into the topic page template,
Yeah.
and so that was a new addition we added to WxT with the Drupal 11 upgrade. So we already had the fields defined that we were migrating into.
And the regions as well? Or?
And the layout and the regions, exactly. So like you'll notice that you'll notice like the paragraph items at the bottom,
Yeah.
they're different, right? So we're harvesting the data, but it's going into our template, it's going into our entity and into our templating system. So it doesn't look the same because our template for WxT is different. Right, yeah, so all that's set up and it's all driven off the theme of templating.
Yeah, it's good that Stephen put that into the WxT, because before, like, each department was doing their own topic page implementation, and I had done one, you had done one, so now we have a standard one.
Now
so we can kind of unify now.
Yeah, standard baseline now that we
Yeah.
build off of that. Fernando?
Yeah, so I was just wondering, when you import, I can see from here, but let's say that you scrape and import the page, did you bring the metadata with it, or?
So my demo, I didn't bring the metadata in with it, but with the original page migration I was going to show, I had metadata coming in as well. So we could target metadata in the head of the document and extract it and put it into fields as well as part of our field mapping. So yeah, that's possible.
I got a second question. How big that accessibility file can be? That will try like a lot of stuff in there, or you do like per parts, or?
Yeah, we've done some testing on bigger batches, done a couple thousand. So
Yeah, okay, so we can get.
yeah, exactly. Because it's built on Batch API, theoretically you should be able to handle like 100,000 or more.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry for trying to ask a question right off the top.
Oh, that's
I was
fine.
just hoping for a little bit more context. I think WxT is some sort of government thing.
Yeah, sorry. So Drupal WxT is a distribution of Drupal. So it's Drupal plus a whole bunch of functionality, common look and feel, suited towards the government, right?
And so then this migration tool is packaged as part of that, or how
No, so this migration tool is completely separate. So although the session was about migrating to Drupal WxT, the reality is you can migrate into any Drupal 10 or 11 website. It doesn't have to be based on Drupal WxT. It's just kind of our niche. We do a lot of government work, but this is generic enough. You could run it on any Drupal 10 or 11 website to migrate data in.
So then is it like a contributed module on Drupal.org? Is this proprietary to you?
So right now, the Harvester itself, it's not open source yet. The underlying APIs that we built for, we have released as open source. So our Azure OpenAI and Azure Translator service module, we've open sourced that. And we envision in the future we would make this open source as well. It's not there at the moment. And it's still, for us, it's still an ongoing R&D project for our AI research. But like I said, we just recently used it at Official Languages. It's the first real client that we've used it for, and we've been successful there. So, yes.
How well does it handle like dynamic pages?
What do you mean by dynamic?
Like pages that have interactive elements, like you click something, there might be a modal pop-up or certain stuff like that.
Like a JavaScript thing. So there are, like for instance, WebAL has this thing called Data Ajax Replace, where it's just like a div and it has a URL, and so the JavaScript reaches out to the URL, grabs the data, and puts it in. So we have ways of handling that as well, because we can actually grab that URL and go and scrape that data ourselves. But then there's other things like we can use other like headless browsers and things if we want to scrape the data after JavaScript's been put in place. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for those media items, like the image and document, right? So is this still possible, not in the file itself, also migrate as a reference, like media items? Right?
Yeah, so we do support, so we do images, but we also do files, so PDFs, docx. So all of that is part of our media plugin, where we extract the media. And so even for the last migration we did at OPAL, we were grabbing PDF files and creating media entities out of them. Yeah, so that's all built into the plugin system. Yes?
Very quick question. Once you've done a lot of volume and you've run these segregated, a page, a topic page, several content types, do you have a mechanism to try and deal with going back and dealing with UUIDs? Because links will change through post processes, so as you keep doing these bundles, then URLs will have UUIDs. You know the drill what I'm asking?
Yes. Yeah, so we have this, so we have a sub-tab on our listing page for post-processing. So we can now go and run, after we've run all of our batches, we can select, for instance, if we want to process a batch and you want to do the link replacement. So we can actually, after we've done all of our migrations, we could run through those batches again to do things like replace the links to the new links that are now in Drupal.
Link it.
Yeah, link it substitution or anything like that. So yeah, and this is actually, these post-process are a new plugin system that we've introduced. So these are now plugins as well. So we can define plugins and you can select them from this list and apply them to any of your batches.
And as a follow-up to that, I saw you've done rollback. Does any of this integrate with Drupal's migration UI where you can roll out, roll back?
That's a good question. It's actually, so we built this completely separate. It's not using Migrate API. We have our own mechanism for handling the rollbacks as well. It acts very similar to Migrate API in that regard. So you can do a harvest, you can roll back, or you can just harvest back on top of it. We also have, if certain things fail, like if I go back to the harvest listing page here. So if we have failures, they actually get marked in the system, and now I can just go back and harvest the failed items. So if you just go and fix those couple items up, you could just harvest the delta instead of doing the full thing again. And so because this was a research and an R&D project, we were looking at how to solve some of the problems that we saw with existing systems. So we decided that we were going to kind of start from scratch.
That's really good, because you're always going to find those. As you're doing a migration, you're always going to find the edge cases. You're going to have to either redo your whole migration, but with that, you just redo the failures, or you can do a rollback and run it again.
Just targeted, yeah. And another thing that we're looking at is being able to actually go. So once you do the harvest, you have all of the entities that have been harvested. These ones are obviously have failed. But I'd also like to introduce where I can select one that actually worked and just say, I want to redo these ones. Even though they may have completed properly, I want to be able to go and mark those down and granularly go back and run through them again.
last question for me. So normally in the government you have English and French pages, right? So how you do the migration in this case? You migrate all the English pages and then all the French pages, and they connect directly to nodes after?
Exactly, yeah. So I'll show you, I have a harvest batch set up here for English. And then I have one set up for French. So it's funny. So with OCall, we started because it's a French first site. So our main migrations are built on French, and then our translation migrations are actually English. And so there's a field here, translate for batch. So you select, instead of creating new entities with this batch, it's going to create translations. And in this case, it's going to use French. So we can actually have multiple languages and run them as their own batches. And we decided to separate them into their own batches so that we can apply the plugins per language, right? There may be some find and replace. We also have plugins that can add markup at the top or the bottom of the page. And those are language specific. So we decided to separate each language out into its own batch and then connect them together and then have those translation batches just add translations to the original nodes. And it all links up with the ID field that I showed you from the CSV file, so that's how that link works. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, well, thanks everybody. We'll be around for the rest of the day if you guys have any other questions or want to see other parts of the demo that we didn't have time to go over today, but you appreciate everybody coming in. Thanks.
I just want to add, we've been publishing a lot of various different modules as we build projects. So this month there's the web form 24-hour, daytime 24-hour module was just published for Cinder System, under Cinder Systems. What it does is it provides, in English on the web form module, you'll have a 20-hour format in AM and PM, but in French, it's military time, so 00800 or 0800 hours. So that module just came out. We also published the simple faves module, so this is not really a government-like module, but it's a favorites selection. You get a little heart, and it's got views field plugin integration. It works with search API views as well, so it's a neat little module. And we're working on lots of different modules on Drupal. You just look at our profiles and you'll see all the work we're doing. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Look there.